Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Whole You Candid Conversations. This is episode 7, and I am continuing the conversation in honor of maybe in Mental Health Awareness Month. And we're specifically talking about self care. And I am here with a special guest, Tikiya. Um, I'm so
Hi,
happy to have her.
thanks for
um,
having me on.
Yes. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tikiya. I am a registered nurse, and I work in a lot of different fields, anywhere from general nursing, we call it med surge, cardiac, work with psych patients a lot, have done some ED, uh, emergency department work. And I've been working in the nursing field for 4 years. Prior to being a nurse, I used to work with victims of domestic violence, and I did that for, I think, 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
I did that right after college and was in that field for about 10 years. So um, all of these things kind of tie in together with mental health and working in the service field.
Yes. Yes. I am so happy to have you. I feel like there's a lot that you can contribute to this. Specifically, so not only are you a nurse. Now I've known Tikiya for some years. We went to college together. That's how we met.
Yes.
And she finished. I did not. No, I'm just kidding.
Everyone has different worlds, and that's okay. We all kind of do what's best for us, right?
Yes. I'm no, it's no shade to me. I'm just being funny. But no, we did meet in college. We went to UIC.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole nother topic. But because that's a lot of stress too. But
Yes.
what I like most about Tikiya is she's a very easygoing person. And she always, like, I'm the type of person, like, I would freak out and focus on the bad, and she'll always point out the good. So, so that's just kind of her, who she is as a person. But I feel like over the years, you just are, I want to say, a worker bee. You work all the time. Like, you're juggling a lot. And when you told me you were going into nursing, I was like, what? But I always remember that's something that you enjoy doing. I remember, like, when I had surgery, gallbladder surgery, she came to the hospital to help me.
Oh, I do remember that.
Yes.
What's
So,
funny was I was recently thinking about that, and I was like, why was we up at the hospital? Like, I don't remember you actually being sick. I just remember like being at the hospital with you.
I had my gallbladder removed. And I mean, let me just say this, and it's not to be TMI, but just to point out the type of person she is, and like how I knew like she would be a good nurse, is this girl wiped my butt, y'all.
I
Because
did. What was this?
and
That
like I
was
said,
funny.
I'm not being TMI, I swear, and I'm not trying to embarrass myself. But if you've ever had your gallbladder removed, it's hard for you to do that. And this girl, with no questions asked, helped me. And I hope I'm not embarrassing you.
That is
But
so. I have no recollection of this happening. I remember being up there. I did, like, if you hadn't mentioned that, I would have never remembered that happened.
and I say that because it's an ice. I'm use this as an icebreaker moment.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yes, that is
Okay.
that points out the type of person you are, and that just shows, like, I'm like, this girl will be good at it. So when you told me you were gonna be a nurse, or you were going back to school to be a nurse, I was like, girl, you'll be good at it.
Okay,
So,
so that did happen, and I think that I
but she's a nurse. She's a nurse, y'all. So it's okay.
it's okay. I don't think I was a nurse then, though.
You
I
wasn't,
was not a nurse then. Yeah,
but you had experience being a P. I'm
I
on the school.
might have been a PCT or something. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
you did.
that sound
You
maybe I
shared that
have
with
no.
me.
That is so funny.
Look, it was I didn't want you to do it. And you told me that. You was like, I'm not, this don't bother me. I'm used to doing this for people. And I'm like, oh, not just random people, for patients, because you had that experience.
Right, right.
So
I guess
I
I
was
was
just
in like I was at work or something. That is okay. All right, we're bonded for life.
not everybody now. Now they're a part of it too. But anyway,
Right, right.
digress. But anyway, we also did photography. Look, I feel like we've linked on so many levels. School,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
before the surgery situation, we worked together as photographers. I was her supervisor and she worked with me. We did that for a short time.
Right. I
Then,
think that was probably also during the gallbladder thing. I feel like you got
yeah,
sick around
well,
then.
that was
Yeah, because
right. I was sick before that, but I had the surgery like right after I was gone. So,
right.
and then we did some like, um, freelance photography together. Not a lot, but
Mm-hmm.
we did. We practiced and we did some
Mm-hmm.
events together. And now we're here.
Yes, this is full circle for us.
Yeah, so we had a so yeah, back to you. You juggled a lot. So you did the what was your title when you were working with people, dealing with domestic abuse, domestic violence?
I was a domestic violence advocate.
Mhm.
Um, for about 5 years, I worked at a safe house that helped victims of domestic violence. So, ones who are trying to escape abusive relationships and did not have a place to stay, they would come to our safe house. It was very like secure, undercover location.
Mhm.
And I worked directly with the victims there. I did that for 5 years, and then I left there and I worked at another nonprofit that was the same thing, that worked with victims of domestic violence. And I started a program, an outreach program for middle and high school and kind of general community where we taught healthy relationships and teen dating violence. So for 5 years, I was a educator, a prevention educator, where we went into the schools and we taught a topic out of the health classes in in the schools. So we saw
That's amazing.
upwards of 8,000 students a year teaching them about teen dating violence and healthy relationships.
That's really good. I would definitely love to have you come back on during domestic violence awareness month to just share more because there are so
Yes,
many things.
October.
Yes, I would definitely like to have you come on and share some things
Absolutely.
about that. But in that field with that experience, I cannot imagine the amount of mental health issues or challenges that you've had to face working with some of those victims. Would you do you want to share a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. So, in a lot of situations where people are undergoing a lot of different types of stressors, there is always mental health where you have to work on self-care for the caregivers, us who are taking care of and providing assistance to people who need help. It can
Yeah.
become very tiring and kind of can be a down situation for a lot of people situations, and you end up taking that on for yourself. And it's something that's called compassion fatigue, and that's when you are helping, you're in a helping field and you honestly just kind of feel just very heavy and tired all the time because of the amount of work that you're pouring into other people and you're not pouring into yourself. So
And
for
you're
someone
talking
who
about
works in it,
yourself. I'm sorry to cut you off. You're talking about yourself in that capacity as an advocate.
yes, for people
Okay.
who work in the helping field can
Mhm.
easily get compassion fatigue.
Yes.
And when that is happening, you really have to do a better job at taking care of yourself and having self-care. As far as the victims and other people, whether you're in a hospital or need any other type of medical care, mental health can easily become an issue for anyone, because
Yeah.
of the amount of stress that you can undergo, whether it's in your relationships at home, your work environment, being sick and in the hospital. Those are all stressors that us as caregivers have to be very cognizant of our
Yes.
patients and our clients' mental health.
Yeah. I cannot even imagine. I mean, I've done service work, but not like that. You're more, I feel like you're hands on. My husband actually does advocacy work. He's a mentor and he works with younger boys. And he goes into the schools and stuff. And so like just to see the things that he deals with and face within that field. It's like it's a lot. I actually did go to school to be for human services, and I had
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity to do some internship around that, and I just was like, I cannot. I don't know how these people do this. This is very, when you're dealing with some issues that you have no experience in, like personal experience, like you don't know anyone
Mm-hmm.
that went through that. It's a lot. Um,
It's
how
a
do you
lot, and
deal
it's important to do, if you don't have personal experience, even if you do have personal experience, to make sure you do a lot of research, a lot of reading, a lot of, you have to take care of your own mental health. You can't pour from an empty cup. You know what I mean?
with? That's exactly what I always say. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Now, um, let's talk about your nursing. So you worked in the hospital prior to, you're a travel nurse now, but you worked in the hospital prior to that. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean, now as a travel nurse, I still work in the hospitals.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
yeah, you still work in the hospital,
oh, before
but you were,
becoming a nurse.
yeah,
Well, my work with domestic violence victims is what kind of brought me full circle to wanting to become a nurse. So when we were working together and all of that, when I was working in the hospitals, I was doing it in anticipation and to complete my prerequisites to go to nursing school. I was doing it at that time. I'm not one to tell people about a lot of hospital at that time to complete my prerequisites for
can you kind of go back, because we
um,
kind of lost, I kind of lost you a little bit. There was some, you lost, you kind of broke up. So you said
oh,
you
okay.
mentioned, yeah.
Okay, so I was saying that at the time when I was working in the hospital, not as a nurse, I was
Mhm.
completing prerequisites for nursing school. So
Okay.
it's there. You have to, a lot of the programs you have to be a CNA first,
Mhm.
or a PCT first, and I
Mhm.
was doing that to make sure that I would meet those requirements and also know that nursing is what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good because, and like I said, when I went to school for human services, that's exactly what they were doing too. They wanted to put you out there to see if that's something you really want to do. And then they intentionally have you do different, like, types of programs. So like if you are working with children, like I interned at Tuesday's Child, my tone,
Okay.
Tuesday's Child, and I did that for 1 month in the summer. Um, and then you had the opportunity to work in a homeless shelter. You had an opportunity to work at a rehab center. So like you get to choose the facilities. You have to do your research, see if they are taking in people for internships. But
Mhm.
the goal was to have you get as much exposure as you can.
Right. Right. And that's really helpful to know if that's a field that you would want to go into.
What was that like? What was that like, doing this as a prerequisite, not a nurse yet? What was that like for you?
Listen, I am not lying when I say I cried my first week working. I hated, I like it. I did not hate it as in like the work that we were doing. I got put in a nursing home, and I could not imagine that people lived like that. Everyone in my community, everyone in my house, everyone in my family, when people got old, they just stayed at home and the family took care of them. The whole notion that people have to live in a nursing home and have other people, wiping their butts and taking care of
Yeah,
them, and it's often understaffed and there's not a lot of help, and their families don't come visit them. It looked horrific to me and it pulled at my heartstrings. I cried like a baby. I was so upset.
yeah,
And I was like, I don't think I can do this. And I remember my clinical instructor at the time, she was like, you are crying because this is probably what you need to be doing in life. You care, and this is like important work that we're doing. People need caregivers to help them, people need um, visitors, people need someone in their personal space who care about them. And you
yes,
obviously care, And she was like, give it a little time. You'll, get used to it. And she wasn't lying. It's what I love to do.
That's amazing. What did you do to get yourself through that emotional time?
I think having that heart to heart, we probably talked for about 45 minutes. Having that heart to heart with her helped. A lot of times when we're under a lot of stress and we're doing a lot of uncomfortable things, just being able to have someone to talk to about the feeling, we have big feelings. So the big feelings that we're having, being not holding them in, but being able to express that to other people, whether for me, it was a clinical instructor. For us as, adults, we may need a therapist. And I think that a lot of times is really, really important for taking care of your mental health. So at that time, I reached out to my instructor and we discussed it. We worked through it. I learned a lot of skills that helped me along my way there, that made like the work lighter or easier to deal with. And also she encouraged me to get to know the patients on a personal level. And that keeps you from them being just like a patient. No, we know Joanne, and Joanne likes applesauce with her breakfast. And, those sort of things bring human interaction into the situation.
Exactly. I love that. When you became a nurse, did you continue on working at the nursing home, or that's when you transitioned out?
I actually transitioned out in a nursing home before I became a nurse. So I probably worked in a nursing home maybe 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And then I kind of was in limbo when I was switching jobs.
Yeah.
It was probably a little bit longer than 2 years because I actually was doing two jobs at the same time. I was picking up shifts at the
Oh
nursing
my
home.
God.
And then I left there
You,
and went to, I was one of those worker bees.
yeah, I mean, but but then you did that half of your career so far. You've been a nurse for 4 years and you've done that. I want to take a step back because I have a sister that's a nurse, and I know people that are nurse, and they talk about that whole experience through nursing school. This is very challenging. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do remember you still worked full time while going through nursing school at the as a domestic violence advocate. Is that correct?
I worked full time. So my timeline it's very long. So, and because I did so many jobs, the things kind of overlap. But I worked full time at this point in my career when I was a CNA or a PCT. I was working at the shelter, the safe house.
Yeah.
And I was doing the photography thing with you. So I was doing those two things. And then I switched halfway, and then I was doing photography and I was working as a educator, a prevention educator.
Yeah.
And while I was a prevention educator, I used to do in services at hospitals.
Yeah.
For the nurses and the doctors to teach them how to properly assess for domestic violence. Because a lot of times victims of domestic violence will go into the hospital and say, oh, my head hurt, my stomach hurt, I fell down the stairs and broke my arm. And
Wow.
they treat the broken arm, they give them something for their stomach and they're sending them home. Well, if you were properly assessing, you may have found out that they fell down the arm because their significant other pushed them, or that they have several bruises on their body and it's just not the arm problem, or that the stress in their life is causing stomach ulcers. So I used to do in the prevention education position in services, several of them at hospitals, doctors' offices, to help clinicians properly assess for domestic violence. And that is when I realized I can do this as a nurse. I don't
Wow.
have to stay in this one little field. I can actually branch out and help a lot of people. I can do this in the ER. I can do this in a doctor's office. So that is what made me go back to nursing school.
That's amazing. That is really amazing because you hear that I love true crime, and I don't do any like look. And I'm not saying that to be funny, but I if you watch true crime, you see so many types of situations, especially domestic violence, and it intrigues me. And in my mind, I'm an advocate in my mind. Like I'll speak
Okay.
about it. Hopefully, yeah. I don't actually do any work. I am very interested, but I
We
also
got to get you involved.
yeah, I am very interested, but I do believe because at the end of the day, I have a heart for therapy. That's what I went to
Mm-hmm.
school for. I'm a life and wellness coach. So I have a heart for that. So like I in my mind, I advocate. I'm always trying to educate people about these type of situations because I think that there's a lot of stigma around it. We'll save
Yes,
that for
it is.
October. But
Okay.
I think it's very important to have people that are within the police department and in the medical industry who are aware of these things. So I really like that you were doing it, and then you said, you know what? I think that I can do this too. So,
Yes. And we also train police officers twice a
yeah,
year.
that's amazing. That is amazing because a
Yeah.
lot of people need to be more aware of what to look at. Um,
Yeah.
I got caught on that one, but so again, you were working full time and you were doing that, and you were doing all these other things too. What was that like
Yes, I was
mentally
working
for you?
full time and I was doing nursing full time.
Yeah,
Nursing school full time. Yes.
yeah. What was that like for you mentally?
Mentally, that was I've ever been in my life. Um, Especially nursing school is really hard. And people tell you it's really hard and you don't even know. When I was in it, I had blinders on. So I don't even know if I thought it was really hard while I was in it. Until
Yeah.
the last year and the last semester, it all blew
Mm,
up at this like within that last month. The program that I was
yeah.
in was very rigorous. We had to keep 80% average, which was considered a C in the program. Um, we yeah, we had to we couldn't miss any classes, couldn't miss clinicals, like every little thing could really be your downfall. And me, I don't I'm not the greatest test taker, so I made a very important point to do all the homework, to show up at every, study session, to come to the professor's office because I I struggled in a test taking, and nursing is very heavy on a test taking. None of that extra stuff that I was doing really didn't matter if I still didn't pass the exams.
Yeah.
But I was really doing all of that plus working. I was telling someone today how when I was in nursing school, I averaged 2 to 4 hours of sleep a night. So not only was I, not sleeping, I wasn't eating, I gained 40 pounds. Like the
Oh,
stress
wow.
showed in my weight gain. I'm still working to take that off now. But the stress showed in my weight gain, and that's when I am under a lot of stress. You can see it
Mm.
in that area, and then
I've never seen that side of you.
no, well, I was kind of incognito when I was in school. I wasn't talking to a
Yeah.
lot of people. A lot of people did not know that I was in school. I think you knew, but I don't
I knew
know
you
that.
were.
Did you know when I? Okay.
Yeah, so I knew you were telling me about it. And at first I was just like, because like I said, my sister went through nursing school. So I kind of knew it was rigorous. And like I knew what my sister told me, like you couldn't work a job doing nursing school. Like it takes all of your time. So when you
Yes, they
told
tell you
me,
that. They tell you
yeah,
can't work a job. Don't
yeah,
like every time that I did bad on a test or I didn't get the grade that I needed, I would come to the professors for help, and 100% of the time they always said you need to quit your job. That was like the world solution
yeah.
to all the problems.
So
Yeah.
when you told me that and you were still doing photography and you were still working a full-time job, I was just like, do you think you'll be able to do it? And it wasn't that like I doubted you. I knew like you could do it, but I was just thinking like it's a lot. Is you still and for a while
It was
you
a
were
lot. When I look back, I still don't know how I did it. I did do it, but I don't really know how. My last
yeah.
semester of nursing school, I was under a lot of stress. I was under the most stress my last semester.
Yeah.
My apartment caught on fire.
Oh, wow.
So I was essentially homeless. I was staying with friends and sleeping on friends' couches. And like I had dogs. My dogs was living in one place. They was over here. I was over here. And I had to travel over almost 2 hours back and forth from school and work.
Yeah.
I was in a long-term relationship. I think I was with him for maybe 2.5 years. And he broke up with me my last month. Like all of this stuff happened at the same time.
All I know is that you was gone. I haven't heard from you. But I knew you were in nursing school, you were not on Facebook. You don't do Facebook a lot. I think back then you did it more, but
I did it more back then. But
yeah, you did.
Yeah, I wasn't on Facebook, and if I wasn't like posting about. I didn't really tell anyone I was in nursing school because I think a lot of if you would look at my situation, a lot of people probably would say I couldn't do it. And honestly, I mean, I don't know how I did. So when I encounter a lot of stress, I kind of just put my blinders on and keep going. I don't actually read into all the reasons or ways why it wouldn't be possible. So even in school, all the professors and anyone that I asked, tutors, anyone that I asked for help, they always said, you cannot work and be in nursing school at the same time. You have to quit your job. Well, I didn't really have an option to quit my job, and I wasn't quitting nursing school either. So I had to put the blinders on and keep going. So that is the reason why I didn't tell people that I was in nursing school. I didn't even tell my job. I told my job, I announced it the day I graduated.
Well, that was the other thing. I remember you said you wasn't going to tell your job. And I was just like, because we did, and you probably don't remember. It was years ago, but we did talk about it. We talked about it extensively. And I was just like, so you going, I didn't want to, I am that type of person. I don't like to make anybody second guess their decision. And I definitely don't want to come off like I'm being negative. So I didn't want to do that. I just was like, if you can do it, you can do it. But I knew when you started, I didn't hear from you. So I was like, she in school. And that's fine. Like, I'm not one of those friends and that is like, although you used to tell me if I don't hear from you, you're gonna be on the associate list. You used to tell me that all
the time. Me and my issues with my friends, like, y'all better call me.
Yeah. You was a stickler for that. You was like, you better text the call. But when I didn't hear from you, I'm that type of person. I'm like, somebody, obviously they doing something, and I give people their space, and I'm never the type of person that like, well, I'm done with them. But I understood what you was doing, and I respect you for that, because I get that. You can't always tell everybody what you're doing, because they'll kind of come in and like make you second guess everything.
Yeah, put some doubts in there. I was already getting it from school, right? Like, so I was already getting the sideways looks. I get a low score on the exam, and they looking at me like, you need to quit your job. You're not studying hard enough. You're not doing this. And honestly, I was studying until 2:00 in the morning every night. So it wasn't that. And a professor explained it to me, not saying that like we're saying you can't do it. It's just that in nursing school, you have to learn so much that the only way that you can do it is not, you're in nursing school. So it's not a fact that you can't learn it. It's a fact that you don't have time to remember it. You're spending 8 hours a day at your job. You need those 8 hours to remember the work that you're learning. So that was stressful. So for me, I wasn't really, I do remember talking to you about it. And I do remember telling you about it, like when I first got accepted and not being sure if I could go through with it. But after those few initial people that knew, it was only a handful of people that honestly knew that I was in school. Almost to the very end. What blew up was that I had to break down and ask people for help when my apartment caught on fire. So that was that stressor where I was like, okay, I can't take it no more. I gotta reach out for help.
Yeah.
And that's when we talk
and
about
if anybody know you, I was just saying, if anybody knows you, they know that was probably something hard for you to do.
Yes, yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's hard for you to do. That's hard for a lot of people to do, to ask for
yeah,
help, but it is definitely hard for me.
yeah,
But in that moment, I was I was drowning in the situations that was going on around me. I had to ask for help, and I think when you surround yourself around good people who are supportive and who understand what's going on, it helps. It helps a lot.
yeah. Definitely so. I think anybody can relate to that. When you're whatever you're doing, it definitely helps to have a support system. I'm gonna move up a little bit. You became a
Okay.
traveling nurse during the pandemic. What was that like?
Yes. It is, traveling nurse was something that I always wanted to do. I learned about it in nursing school, and I'm like, look, I love to travel. And that is like a dream come true.
Yeah.
Um, did not expect it to happen as soon as it did. I think my goal for myself when I was in nursing school, I'm like, okay, you need to, there are prerequisites to doing it. You have to be very experienced in the area that you want to travel in. And so they want you to have at least 2 years of nursing experience already. None of
Yeah.
that CNA PCT stuff start. You have to be a nurse for 2 years. So
Mhm.
so I knew that at the 2 year mark I would start looking into it. Well, the pandemic came along right at the 2 year mark.
Mhm.
So that was my opportunity to jump on it. And at the time, not a lot of people knew about travel and nursing, and not a lot of people was doing it at the time.
Mhm.
Um, that I knew of. I didn't know anybody that was actually, maybe one person that was doing travel nursing prior to the pandemic. I knew that
Mhm.
was something that I wanted to do, but
Yeah.
I kind of just jumped on it as I do everything, as I did with nursing, as I did with photography, as I did with domestic violence. I just jumped in, rode the wave.
How did you get through the pandemic? Because I cannot imagine. We hear only for those of us that don't work in the medical field. We hear so many
Mm-hmm.
stories about from different nurses, different medical professionals that talk about how stressful it was. What was that like, and how did you get through that?
That was also really stressful. Um, the type of nursing that I was doing, I was not accustomed to our patients dying a lot. Um, it almost rarely happened. And if it did happen, it didn't happen on my floor. It would be like in the ICU, like I was taking care of them for a number of days.
Yeah.
I left, and when I got back, I heard they, went down, and that was the end of that. Maybe I had only run a handful of calls prior to that, and then the pandemic hit, and I was every day doing several CPR compressions, saving people several times a shift. It was rough. It was rough. And some days I would, come home and just like pass out, just super tired. Um, we had to do a lot of leaning on each other, and once again, leaning on my support system for for help.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I mean, there's so much that we can say. We I don't want us to be crunched for time. So
We got about
we got some
15
time.
more
We
minutes,
got
but
some
we got a little bit of time.
time. I really want to stick right there because so many people don't understand, like, for various reasons, and I won't go into it, but so many people minimize or negate the experience of those people within the medical professional. Like I said, I know nurses, I've heard stories.
Mm-hmm.
You said you had to see death more than you were used to. What type of mental toll did that take on you?
Yeah, it definitely took a huge mental toll. I had to kind of reach out, talk about it a lot. With us nurses, we can lean on each other, and I think that's really a helpful thing.
Mhm.
Um, I think with the amount of stress that I was under, I think I did okay in terms of not really having to like reach out for more professional help, but at times we did have the chaplain come up, and we did have like a therapist come on the floor and just, pull us off from time to time. How are you doing? Being able to talk to other people, whether it's your supervisor or it's your coworkers, to kind of like work through that, because it was hard. So oftentimes we did see the hospital that I worked at the time, at the very beginning of the pandemic, when it was really bad, was Advocate Trinity Hospital. And I think they did a fantastic job of just at least trying to take care of the mental health of the people who worked the COVID floor. They incorporated rest breaks, which was like unheard of at the time. They gave us an additional 30 minutes to just take a nap, relax. They created a room, they called it the Zen Den, where if you wanted to get off the floor, you could do that. Now, the realistic part about it is, do you really have time to get off the floor when you're scared to leave your patient's bedside? But the thought was there. The making sure that there were counselors around, and the making sure that the chaplain came on the floor and spoke with us and prayed with us on a regular basis. Those things mattered. I feel like at the time, our supervisors that worked the COVID floor at that time really cared, at least in the very beginning. I left shortly after that to travel. So I did not have a lot of those amenities, if you will, after that. But at the very beginning of the pandemic, at my home hospital, for sure.
So I want to switch gears a little bit. Okay. You love to travel. Now, I know you're a travel nurse, and people are like, oh yeah, she's a travel nurse. No, you love to travel. Talk about your love for travel, because I feel like that's a form of self-care, right? Can you talk about
traveling? For me is definitely a form of self-care.
Yes. Can you talk about your love for travel?
My love for traveling started back in college at USC. Prior to that, growing up, we didn't travel a lot. Maybe family reunions, I think, is what we did. Every few years we would drive somewhere. So freshman year, I had the opportunity to do like a study abroad volunteer work experience in Australia. And I remember it was so much money at the time. Like, looking back, I'm like, okay, to a college student, it was a lot of money. And I went, and I was like, I have to go on this trip. Like, I've never been anywhere. I need to go. And when I say I scraped together, honey, I scraped together the money. I was braiding hair in the dorm rooms. I was like shaking people down and said, come, give me all your loose change. I'm trying to go on this trip. And on the trip, it changed my life. I went by myself, which of course everyone thought I was crazy. But at the time, I remember my grandmother, she passed shortly after that, but she would really, really, really wanted me to go. And she was so excited when, it was time for me to go. She gave me money, and she's just like, here, put this in your pocket. Don't lose it. She gave me like a wad of 20s. I'm like, what? And she like pinned it in my pocket and was like, don't show nobody this. But her excitement for me to go. And then I went and I met so many people, so many different types of people. I think I was one of the only Black people on the trip, and just embracing the different environments and the different cultures. And I remember I met a girl on this trip, and they told us to bring pictures of our families or whatever. This was like, Facebook was brand new, so it wasn't all of this. And she said, she's like, oh, my family takes 4 or 5 vacations a year. And I was like,
wow.
What?
Wow.
Like,
that's amazing.
That was, to me, that sounds so foreign. I couldn't even imagine. I hadn't even done 4 or 5 in my whole life, anywhere close to that number. And they were doing this once a year. And so I remember thinking, like, I want to do that. Like, I want to take vacations a year. Like, what is that? And so I was just it was my first time being around people who had higher social economic status, and people who came from different areas, different cultures. I met my best friend there, one of my best friends there in Australia, and we are still really close today. She's going to be on my bridal party.
Wow.
And yeah. So that was like, that turned the ignition, and I've been doing 4 or 5 vacations every year myself ever since then.
Man, I can only hope to do that many. Being a mom is not that easy, but what does
Well,
that do
yeah,
for
because
you?
I don't have kids, and that
Yeah,
is, I'm like, I
yeah, no,
can't have
no
kids because I
shade
need to
to,
travel.
yeah, no shade to single people, and there are some parents that do travel. I'm just not in that position to. But what does that do for you? Um, Being able to do this, how does that help you mentally? How does that? What feelings does that give you to be able to travel?
So I think it is my relaxation, and it's my resting place. Sometimes people will go for a walk, sometimes to clear their heads. Me, I like to explore different cultures. I like to see how people are living. I like to feel the water on my toes. I like to take a nap on the
Yeah.
beach or outside or wherever I am. And that is what clears my head. That's what gives me, that's my self-care.
And I saw something where I saw something in class last night where this guy was talking about experience, growth, and contribution. What experiences do I want to have in life? How will I grow? And what would I contribute to society? And I feel like when you're mentioning it makes me think about that. You are creating these experiences in your life. You are growing from those experiences, and doing both of those things is allowing you to be able to contribute to other people in society. And so just listening to you makes me think like, oh, she is the epitome of that. Also, the other thing he says, people that live um for a means goal versus people that live for an end goal. So in our
Mm.
head, he said, in our head, we do things um as a means to an end, whereas some
Mm-hmm.
people just focus on the end. And that's the other thing about you. You did what you wanted to do. You went to nursing school, you became a nurse. You could have looked at every other avenue. You could have looked at, I need to quit my job to make sure that I can finish nursing school, but you didn't focus on the means. You just focused on, this is the end and this is what I want to do. I hope that
That's so
inspires.
powerful. That's so powerful.
So it's just so crazy because I learned that and then you're saying it. But I really do want to thank you for joining me
Thank you
on
for having me. This has been a good time. Like,
yeah.
catching up.
Yeah. So I just want to say, for anyone that's watching this video, it's pre-recorded, but feel free to leave any questions that you have within the comment section, or if you want to chat or add to this topic in the comment section, please do. And I will make sure that I tag Tikiya in that. You can also find me on the Whole You LWC on Facebook, Marquilla VSG on Instagram, or you can find me on YouTube at Marquilla Bolden. Everything is right here at the top on the banner. We'll have Tikiya again for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I think she has
That's
a
so
lot.
exciting.
Yeah, she's very passionate about it, and I'm sure she has a lot to contribute. And I'm pretty sure she'll be wearing purple.
Absolutely.
As
Oh, you
Yes,
know.
as I will. Yes. So I really want to thank you, Tikiya. I appreciate you, and we'll see you next week, same time Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Thank you. Don't leave yet.